So let's get started then. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much everybody for joining us today. Your encouragement is very vital in shaping Europe's next steps toward the digital transformation on the energy system. As our President von der Leyen said recently, Europe's competitiveness will be built on clean energy and digital innovation, not one without another. So this is a very important combination for us. So updating Europe's energy and digital infrastructures is a top priority of this Commission. We know that modern grids and digital infrastructure, notably cloud, data centers, AI factories, gigafactories, they are not just an engineering issue, but they are very much nowadays also geopolitical assets that will determine also whether Europe leads in clean tech and the AI race or dependence on others. So our discussion today is about execution, how policymakers, network operators, system integrators and technology providers can work together now to make Europe's grids flexible, efficient, resilient and also secure and cyber secure. And how our digital solutions powered by data and AI will be part of this solution. Next year, 2026, will be the year of implementation when the recently adopted Apply AI strategy and forthcoming strategic roadmap on digitalization and AI in energy move from vision to delivery. And in this respect, I see four main strands of action aimed at first building the digital backbone for us, then also ensuring energy for AI and AI for energy. This is one of our strategic sectors that we have to be able to apply AI in our energy. Also enhancing our security, very important priority for us nowadays in everywhere, and also providing enabling framework for all of this. So topic number one, building the digital backbone. We know that data and computing and connectivity, they are the new infrastructure of energy. And together they can also provide very much visibility and speed and also intelligence. And the Apply AI strategy now supports forecasting, optimization and digital twins, while our data union strategy adopted today, it ensures these models have access to trusted, high-quality data, because we see that, of course, data is very much precondition for any innovations in this area. And we see that Europe's greatest strengths lie very much in the intelligent layer of the energy system. So the software, standards and cybersecurity that make our grids secure and smart. Our goal is now to move from pilots to large-scale deployment here, powered by collaboration across the entire ecosystem, industry, innovators, system operators and also prosumers alike. As we reinforce now this digital backbone, we will also do so together with the modernization of Europe's physical grid infrastructure. The forthcoming grids package, which Dan is working with, will help modernize grid connection frameworks across our union and also rewarding readiness and grid-friendly design here. And this coherence between digital innovation and modern grid planning is very essential for Europe's ability to deploy clean technologies at scale. So this building the digital backbone is our really topic number one. But then also topic number two, energy for AI and AI for energy. These two transitions depend very much of each other, because we see that AI for energy will make our grids more adaptive, better forecast demand, and also manage more flexibility. And energy for AI will ensure that we have clean, affordable power for the data centers and computing clusters that support innovation. But we must ensure this growth is sustainable, of course. And now we think that in 5-7 years' time, Europe will need 3 times more data centers that we have today. And of course, there's huge energy demand. And we want to make sure that we are also making, when we make these investments, we are doing it in a very sustainable manner. And we are always investing to best available technologies when it comes to energy efficiency. We are now preparing a Cloud and AI Development Act in the Commission side, and we are going to present that in the beginning of 2026. And the aim of this Cloud and AI Development Act is really boost investments in this sector, European investments on cloud and AI capacities. And we will present it together with the strategic roadmap for digitalization and AI into energy. And this package will ensure Europe's computing and data center capacity is ready, secure and also sustainable, with streamlined permits, energy efficient design and also trusted supply chains. We know that Europe already leads in very key digital components for the energy sector, from smart metering and grid edge intelligence to advanced power electronics and energy software as well. And this is very strong base, and it gives us confidence also to accelerate now the deployment and scale in this. Then we have the topic number 3 also, and it's about security. As our systems, they connect, cybersecurity and interoperability become essential here. One weak link, as we know, one unprotected sensor or unsecured connection can compromise the whole chain nowadays. And that's why our critical infrastructures, they must be shielded and resilient against ever-evolving cybersecurity threats, and especially throughout the supply chain. Through our NIS2 directive, the Cyber Resilience Act and the Cyber Security Act, we are laying the foundations for a digital Europe that is open but not naive. And now the upcoming revision of the Cyber Security Act is also a pivotal step towards a more secure Europe, because we see that enhancing the Europe's cybersecurity certification framework, it will ensure that digital products and services meet the highest security standards, fostering trust across the continent. And also, additionally, tackling ICT supply chain security challenges will proactively protect our technology infrastructure as well. But security aspect is something that we are taking very seriously. Now, always when we are making new initiatives, we are always looking at the security aspect, economic security, but also the cyber security and physical security aspect, because we see that we are facing many kind of threats nowadays. And topic number 4 is very much about the enabling framework, because technology alone will not deliver the twin transition, as we know. We need people who connect digital and energy knowledge here. So our Smart Energy Expert Group and its Data for Energy Working Group, they are helping remove different roadblocks and also advise on regulatory framework fit for digital innovation. The AI Act guarantees safety and transparency, turning trust into the Europe's competitive edge. And the 2026 work program will put competitiveness at the heart of every initiative, helping Europe's energy and digital companies grow markets and cut costs through smarter use of data and automatization. And also digital bottlenecks, they can become as serious as physical ones, as we see. So managing energy demand and also generation in real time requires data, connectivity and also computing as much as cables and substations. Investing in digital infrastructure is therefore central to Europe's competitiveness. So, to conclude my opening speech here, every virtual solution we deploy strengthens the resilience of our physical infrastructure and also buys us valuable time for its modernization. This is not only a technological transformation we are speaking about, but it's also a very strategic choice about Europe's sovereignty and about our competitiveness, ensuring that the backbone of our digital future, that it's built on European values, European technology, and also with the European industry. So thank you very much for your participation in today's discussions. And now I will give the floor for my colleague, Commissioner Jørgensen, who is sitting next to me.
Thank you so much, Henna. It's great to be here this afternoon to discuss this very important political theme. There is no AI without energy. And increasingly in the future, there will be no part of our energy system that will not be impacted by AI. How we navigate these challenges and opportunities is of vital importance to our energy transition, to our competitiveness, and to our independence. The world is moving faster than ever before towards a future powered by AI. Global investments in data centers has nearly doubled since 2022, reaching $500 billion in 2024. $500 billion, it's astronomical. And of course, Europe cannot afford to be left behind. And that is why we are here, to tackle the challenges together. We must answer two questions in particular, which will form the basis of our discussion today. First, how can AI benefit our energy sector? And second, how can our energy sector in turn benefit AI in Europe? On the first question, we see how AI is already helping us to cut emissions, reduce costs, and increase efficiency. These impacts can be felt across all levels of the energy system. At an individual level, more and more of us are using AI every day, for example, to optimize heating and cooling in our homes and to charge electric vehicles at the right time. To further develop this potential, we need to expand the European market for smart energy services so we can unlock the AI-powered flexibility we need to integrate more renewables and generate more savings. At a system level, AI foundational models offer huge opportunities. These models can help us adapt to the growing complexity and uncertainty of our energy system. With increased shares of variable renewables and more widely distributed assets. To realize AI's potential in these areas, a key issue we need to address is data. By creating an EU-wide framework for energy data exchange, we could create an environment of trust and legal certainty to support the sharing of data freely across borders. This will enable us to provide reliable, extensive, and high-quality data to feed AI models and smart services that can transform our energy system for the better. But, as we know, while AI opens new opportunities for our energy system, it also brings challenges. According to the IEA, a typical AI-focused data center consumes as much electricity as 100,000 households. In Europe, data centers account for 3% of electricity consumption. In some countries, like Ireland, the figure is even higher, 20%. There is no dodging this question. If we want to make Europe a global hub for AI, we must manage the energy footprint responsibly. The digital sector must take its share in the responsibility and the responsible use of our resources, notably energy, and in our decarbonization efforts. To start with, we must make sure that data centers are designed and operated with the highest energy performance standards. We must also turn the challenge into an opportunity by using the waste heat of data centers for district heating and industrial processes. In Finland, for example, a new cluster of data centers is being built by Microsoft. When completed, they will supply heating to 100,000 homes in Finland's second largest city. To multiply solutions like this, we need shared platforms that enable us to plan investments in a strategic way. This is why we wish to explore how we can improve cooperation between data center operators, public authorities, and actors across the energy supply chain. As Commissioner for Energy, I will be personally engaged and attentive to this question. If we can combine industrial expertise, cutting-edge research, and the operational knowledge of our energy system, we can navigate the challenges of AI and open a new and exciting era in our energy union. With this in mind, I will present a strategic roadmap for digitalization and AI in the energy sector early next year. It is a roadmap we are building together. In addition to 15 targeted and public workshops, we have just concluded a public consultation which received more than 325 contributions. We are starting to look through the responses, and I can already disclose two key elements of the feedback. First, actors across the board have called for an EU-wide initiative to support the development and deployment of AI foundational models. A trusted data sharing framework was mentioned frequently. Secondly, there is a clear call for both grid and data center operators to bridge communication gaps for better grid planning and connections, so that data centers can become assets for grid stability and flexibility. These are just some of the areas we can and will address in our roadmap, but I know there are more. To borrow the words from Alan Turing, we can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Turing and his generation led the development of modern computers, opening a new area of possibilities for humanity. And it will be the work of this generation to drive the next era. As the industry leaders, experts and policymakers, you are the people who will shape Europe's AI future. So today, I ask you to share your best ideas, to challenge us and to challenge each other, to be bold in your aims and ambitions. By working together in this spirit, we can seize all of the opportunities that AI has to offer for the clean transition, for the competitive economy, and for a more secure and independent Europe. On that note, I thank you for your time, and I gladly pass the floor to Ms. Laura Cossi. She has directed the flagship report on AI and energy, published a few months ago by the International Energy Agency. Therefore, no one would be better placed to introduce today's panel. Laura.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Jørgensen, Executive Vice President. So, great pleasure for me to give you a few of our findings. So, we at the IEA focus on energy, and to be very honest with you, up until 2 years ago, AI was a terminology that we were not using at all. But since January last year, every energy meeting has basically become a meeting on AI. So Commissioner Jørgensen just said there is no AI without energy. We are actually seeing it very clearly in our data. There is no AI without electricity, and what we are witnessing is a global race towards AI, and the positioning that Europe is taking it's incredibly important. So let me turn to numbers, which is what we do at the IEA. What you can see here on the left-hand side is electricity demand from data center. Up until the year 2020, there was basically a flat demand from data centers and AI computing. Since 2020, when generative AI started to become prevalent, we started seeing a really exponential increase. I want to draw your attention on the right-hand side and the share of Europe, which has been going down. So Europe, back 10 years ago, was accounting for around 26% of energy needs for data center. It has been going down. It is reflecting the amount of data center that we are actually installing. So we are lagging behind, and we are a bit lagging behind, especially towards what's happening in China, which is here the blue part. In terms of electricity needs, if you look at the global number, it's actually not much at all. It's around 1% globally, but as Commissioner Jørgensen said, in different places in the planet it changes, but it's even more than that. It's not about countries, it's locations, because data centers tend to cluster. So in the US, where you have around 180 terawatt hour consumed, actually 50% of that happens in just 4 places. So when you build the data centers, you tend to build the next one next to it for a variety of reasons, for access to the infrastructure. So they actually become mega places where you need electricity. And the ability for the grid to provide this electricity to this data center, it is what is constituting more and more one of the essential points of a competitiveness of one country vis-a-vis another for the next data center to be installed. So this is our expectation for electricity demand going forward. The exponential curve that we have started to see will continue. And what you see here is actually in the United States, where they are continuing very, very strongly deploying and installing new data centers, with the US government really opening up with a number of new regulation and deregulation at the same time. We are expecting most of the new data centers to be installed there. So today, globally, data centers are installed 85% in 3 areas of the world, is the US and the EU. The 15% is in the rest of the world. Which countries are we seeing coming in is actually the Middle East, Saudi, UAE, because they have huge amount of gas and they can produce the electricity needed. We are starting to see some part of Asia interested, Southeast Asia in particular, for sovereignty reason. They want to have the data centers located where the data is consumed for data protection reason. Otherwise, all of the rest is basically still being concentrated US, China, and the EU. In the US, the electricity demand that you're talking about is really huge. We are expecting that data centers will drive half of the electricity demand growth in the US from now to 2030. The load that AI will produce in the US is going to be equivalent to all of the energy industries in the US today. So to give you a sense, basically the US industry took 100 years to develop. In 10 years of time, the same amount of electricity will be needed to power just data centers. So there is a huge reform that is happening towards grids, towards access to land, towards location in federal land, towards actually flexibility of data centers, and this is actually new and is actually happening as we speak. For Europe, the story is very different. It's a much smaller share of increase in demand, and for China is even smaller because they're pushing extremely strongly on the electrification of everything. I think it's important here, this is busy, but I would like you to focus on the dark blue, which is Europe, and this goes through the entire supply chain of AI. You start from the very bottom. What you need for AI is critical minerals, and basically what you see, China dominates fully there. Gallium, which is the next generation chip, is all based in China, which is the green. If you go to the next level, actually you produce the chip. Europe has, in particular with ASML, a monopoly, and we have a huge strategic asset that we should be playing in a very, very conscious way going forward, as we see some actors playing different games on other parts of the supply chain. We also have very good positioning on parts of transformers and cooling, and even if emerging now, I would say, on AI model design, with some of the companies producing innovative AI models in several European countries. France comes to mind. On the application side, this is where Europe is the strongest. It's in AI application in industry. And this is an area where China is catching up quickly, and an area where we should really be focused a lot of attention if we want to maintain the our strategic positioning. I will conclude with very briefly 2 things. The first one, the European Vice President mentioned the tripling of data center capacity. What we are tracking here is that by 2030, with the project pipeline that we are seeing today, we are actually seeing a more than doubling, 2.2 times by 2030, if fully completed, so not yet at the level that was mentioned earlier. We are seeing very clearly the location and the ability of data center to find the place and being connected to the grid as being one of the critical bottlenecks. So electricity is emerging in Europe as a key bottleneck for the deployment of data centers. So this is for us the top first priority to push forward. And I will finish very briefly on AI for energy, where we have done a lot of analysis, where data is particularly scarce, but a couple of key messages. If we were able to harness the potential of AI application across the energy sector, from consumption to production, the emission reduction that we could harness by 2035 would be, in our assessment, 3 times larger than the direct emission that would come from the electricity needed to generate, that is needed to AI. What are the problems? Is that if you look around today in Europe and in the world, actually, AI uptake is not very large in the energy sector when you compare it with other sectors. So AI is a laggard, and we need to look at why is that happening. I want to conclude with one final thing that was not mentioned and is actually AI for innovative breakthrough in the energy sector. This is where, when we look at venture capital, there is not much happening, and is actually probably one of the areas, if we look at what is happening, for example, in material science, for example, in medicine, this is one of the areas that could be the most exciting. I give you one example only. Today, and probably Walburga can say something more, we're basically using only silicon to produce and generate solar. Is not the only material that could be used. And if you look at the all material space that could be used in solar, we have just explored 1% of it. This is exactly the type of AI applications where you can go and crack the numbers and go much, much faster. So all in all, for us, this is strategic importance for the energy sector, but most importantly among countries, and certainly for Europe, electricity and going quickly on electricity is one of the key areas that will make AI in Europe go faster. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. It was a pleasure to see and hear you, and thank you very much for the Executive Vice President Virkkunen, my commissioner who had to leave for another meeting. My name is Mechthild Worsdorfer. I'm the Deputy Director General for Energy, and I'm co-chairing and co-hosting that event with Roberto Viola, who's the Director General of DG Connect. So I think we have a very good roundtable combining leading senior figures from the energy side, which is more familiar to myself, if I may say, but also from the digital AI side. And that is exactly the purpose of today's roundtable, that we exchange with each other and that we speak on exactly what Commissioner and Executive Vice President highlighted and Laura from the IEA has presented just now, so to make the link. It's my pleasure to welcome the other panelists of that session. So Monsieur Bernard Gustin, who is CEO of the Elia Group, very much welcome. Elia, very well known here in Brussels in Belgium. It's the high voltage electricity network operator in Belgium, but also in parts of Germany. Then I would like to welcome Marie Jabonon, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Data4, a European operator and investor in the data center market. Next to you, Vincent Verbeke, or here it's the CEO of ENGIE Belgium, which is ENGIE known to everyone living in Brussels, but also in France and other parts of Europe. It's the main energy supplier in Belgium, but also, as I said, in many other EU countries. Then we have João Claro, CEO and President of the Institute for Systems and Computer Engineering, Technology and Science from Portugal. Very much welcome. Another panelist is Barbara Wittenberg, who is the CTO of 1,5, a climate tech company founded in 2021 for CO2 neutral energy, heat and mobility. And last but not least is Johan Bersihon, yes, VP of AI technology of Schneider Electric. Schneider Electric is, of course, also very much known as a leading global energy technology company. So I think we will have a first round. You have 1 minute to introduce yourself with maybe one key factor which motivates you and passionate about the topic of AI and energy. You have 1 minute each, and I would like to start with Marie Jabonon, and then we go one by one to introduce you with 1 sentence or 2 sentences. Thank you very much.
It's thank you very much. So Marie Jabonon, I'm the CTO of Data4. In a nutshell, Data4 is a European data center operators. And as part of that, we are currently deploying more than 1.5 gigawatts of power supply in Europe. And I'm also at the board of the UEDCA, European Data Center Association, and I'm the chair of the technical committee. So I'm doing that for more than 15 years, and what I think I can bring to this exchange is a very pragmatic and day-to-day approach about the relationship we are having with the TSOs, with all the other players in the value chain of I will say, the data center and the digitalization, to explain and maybe to give some feedback about what we can do to unlock maybe certain challenges we'll have and be able to support the Commission ambition of tripling the capacity within 2030.
Barbara Wittenberg, CTO of 1,5 Degree. 1,5 started very much as a company that did installations of solar panels, batteries, but also EV chargers and heat pumps. By now, we have developed an energy automation layer, which is called Heartbeat AI, which connects all those assets of our customers. So we have 60,000 households connected to that in 4 European countries. And we optimize and steer those customers' assets, first of all for them in their home, but then also towards the different energy markets. And what motivates me really in that is, and what I want to see, the discussion about technology nowadays is there, right? So I spent quite some time at Google, at Oracle, in E.ON before joining again to the energy sector. And different to 20 years ago, the technology is there, but for the energy sector, we don't really apply it in many cases yet. So I think the discussion is going into the right direction of how we can make use of the technologies that are existing, including AI, also in the energy sector.
Thank you. Vincent Verbeek, CEO of ENGIE Belgium. Very pleased to be with you today. I'm also the Chief Revenue Officer within ENGIE, so global role. Very excited to be with you because essentially everybody knows ENGIE, I hope. We are a global utility and Europe is very important for us. And data centers and AI is becoming super important for us. We want to champion in accelerating the energy transition. And we have 3 strong convictions. One is that we need to move forward quickly in electrification and so scale up quickly renewable and flexibility. Second, for this to happen, we need more Europe, but more of the good Europe, meaning more action, less administration. And the third very strong conviction that we have is that there is a convergence that is obvious between data centers and energy. And as a global utility, we believe that we can support the deployment of data centers here in Europe. Why? Because we can offer access to connected land. We have grid connection, so we can offer connected land. We can also offer access to power, access to clean power, and we can develop at scale renewable capacity that is very much needed to operate data centers. And lastly, we can also optimize supply. And this is not science fiction. This is happening right now, literally right now, certainly in the US, okay, and also in Europe, where you see we have big tech companies having announced major investments. So I'm very excited to be with you today. I think this is an unmissable opportunity for Europe to make Europe the place to be, not only for clean energy, but also for data centers.
Thank you. We continue normally with a 1 minute.
Well, Bernard Gustin, I'm the CEO of Elia Group. As you say, Elia Group is a little bit of a special energy transmission group because we have 2 TSOs, one in Germany and one in Belgium, 2/3 of our activities in Germany, 1/3 in Belgium. But we have also a development and consulting activity, which is worldwide, and development in the US. I'm just back from New York this morning, so thank you for the soft landing, because I kept on hearing about data centers. And usually when I'm in Europe, I hear less about it, so now it's good that I continue on that trend. I think for us, you know, AI is a little bit my nightmare and my dream at the same time. Why do I say that? Because we see all this demand coming in, and you've positioned it very well. We need to play a role in AI, but one of the key competitiveness factor to welcome AI in a country is basically the grid availability. And that means that with all the demand we receive today, while some of them are not as serious as others, we need to review the rules in terms of access to the grid, but also to reinforce the investments, and that needs to happen fast. On the other hand, it's also a dream because, you know, we see the complexity today of operating a grid, and everybody is talking about the self-driving cars. I think we will have self-operated networks one day. And I think this is really a vision we need to have. And while we are today building massively and hiring massively, we have a 30 billion euro capex plan over the coming 4 years for the small area. While we are hiring massively, with all the demand of AI, won't be enough. So we need AI to complement. And of course, we will never hire enough people, and that's where AI will complement as well. So that's why I think it will be a unique debate today.
I'll start with the number 800 million. 800 million. This is the amount of tons of CO2 that at Schneider we help our customer save or avoid since 2018. So at Schneider we are obsessed by energy and sustainability. And I'm very pleased to be with you today, Jørgensen, leading the AI technology at Schneider. And we are serving our customer in 4 domains: buildings, industry, but data centers as well, and grids. And we are uniquely positioned to impact positively both aspects, energy for AI and AI for energy. Energy for AI because we combine our expertise in electrification, working with you, utilities, grid operators, and our end-to-end data center solutions. And we think, we're convinced that we can better connect these 2 worlds, the supply of power and energy and the growing data center demand. And on AI for energy, we have built 4 years ago a central AI team composed of 350 AI experts, which are really leveraging AI to drive sustainability in energy management and industrial automation. And I'll cover that today. I hope that I will have the opportunity to share with you concrete examples with real customers.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be on the panel. I am the chairman of INESCTEC. INESCTEC is the largest research and technology organization in Portugal. We are a team of about 500 researchers. We work in digitally enabled systems, and power and energy systems has been one of the main areas of focus for our activity. It's the area where we have our largest research team. We have been a partner of the Portuguese government in setting up and operating the Deucalion supercomputer in Portugal. And so for the past few years, we have become quite aware and quite sensitive of all the issues at the convergence of high-performance computing, AI, and energy. We have also a long tradition of using AI for applications in the energy area. And I would say that the main thrust, the main impetus right now in our Power and Energy Systems Research Group is putting in place the key building blocks and the connections between them for an AI ecosystem. We fully share and endorse the vision that the European Commission has developed for an AI ecosystem for energy. And we are working towards building that ecosystem because we feel that once we have that in place, we can get to another scale and another speed in terms of the innovation that we can unleash from AI to the energy sector.
Thank you very much for this first round and your main motivation and explanation to be here. Now we will start the first 15 minutes on the topic on energy for AI. We heard the different cornerstones or the different sides. So we will go a bit deeper in that first 15 minutes on energy for AI before we go to the next AI for energy. So you heard from the Executive Vice President and Commissioner about the twin transition, and we just heard already how AI is already right now transforming the energy sector. And we need to make sure it's of course linked to our clean energy transition, system resilience, but also we need innovation. And I think if in one sector we need innovation, it's definitely here. So my first question here is, how can the energy system best integrate the future needs of AI technologies in an energy efficient way, because we heard about the needs for energy, or in particular electricity. So of course, if it's going really increasing rapidly, we need to be really sure it's done in an energy efficiency way. So more specifically, I would like to ask first Vincent Verbeek, as a utility company, how do you see the current growth of AI technology and the associated power demand? How can we achieve it in a most sustainable way?
So thank you for the question. First of all, I really would like to emphasize the fact that all that is positive, because I hear a lot of people talking about threats. Honestly, I believe that we should embrace the growth in data centers and the growth of AI that hopefully we will see in Europe. So there is a convergence, I said it before, between energy and AI. We want to electrify for the energy transition. And you have reminded that, Laura, the data centers will represent a big chunk of the future demand growth. And this is good as well, because we are building the infrastructure for that, and the infrastructure that we build need to be utilized. So this growth is very good. I believe that also in Europe, we need energy transition champions. And when we look at tech companies, usually they are energy transition champions. They set for themselves very ambitious goals in terms of decarbonization. And you said it, Europe needs innovation. And as a utility, when we develop business with tech companies, I can tell you, they push us hard to go the next level, to up our game in delivering the products that tech companies want. A good example of that are the 24/7 power supply contracts that we engineer for tech companies. So I like very much the term digital and decarbonization can be twin transitions, because it's so true. Of course, there are some points of attention, and we will not deny the challenges. One, and I guess, Bernard, you will come to that, there are grid bottlenecks, for sure. We need to discuss about that. Also, there is a question on the evolution of the prices of electricity and the possible impact for other industries and households. And third, we need to keep in mind, we need to have resilient supply chains, because if we want to electrify, we want to install wind turbines, we want to install thermal turbines, we need to have the supply chain to achieve that. This is also important. But the good news is that basically there are solutions for all that. And as an invitation for policymakers, I would say, okay, first, let's make sure that we simplify and reduce the permitting process. I mean, we need to develop grid, we need to install more renewable capacities, we need to install more renewable flexibilities, batteries in particular. We need to make that happen faster. And for that, permitting process, reduction of the time is super critical. Second, the connection queues, invitation to my TSO colleagues, needs to be actively managed and dynamically. We need to push for co-location. We have good lands with generation on some grid nodes. We need to encourage co-locating data centers on those nodes. That can be a nice solution also to alleviate grid congestion. We need to push for more flexibility. More flexibility. Flexibility is the name of the game. And maybe also data centers can play a role also next to batteries, next to flexible hydropower plants, next to flexible renewable power plants, because when we curtail renewable power plants, it offers also flexibility to the grid. But maybe next to all that, data centers can also play a role. And maybe a last one is, when we have new data center load, we should encourage additional generation capacities next to these load additions, because that will be good as well for the transitioning and for the electrification of the energy system that we need.
Thank you very much. Very, very valid points. By the way, permitting is one of our key area where we work when we are preparing now our grids package for 10th of December. So there is some hopefully good news there. Marie Chabonon, Data4 has recently signed an agreement with EDF, another big known electricity company in France, for supplying electricity for data center. Are there any lessons learned from you in integrating data centers in the energy system? Thank you.
Thank you. Just to emphasize what has just been said, I think it's a good opportunity, and it's everything which is happening is really positive. That's why we are seeing all here together, and it's good to see all stakeholders all together. I think that's maybe the first time I saw that, so it's because we can all play a role in that. Before just answering to your question, I would like to maybe to reemphasize two things. The first one is that, because it was in the intro of this meeting, sustainability is at the core of the strategy of all data center operators. I can tell you we are all working, the sector is working since 15 years to improve energy efficiency. You can see that on different curves. So we have improved by 25%. So we are really working on that since many, many years. We are continuing working on that. We are also working on reuse of energy with a good partnership with Euroheat, for example. So we are a sustainability sector, but it's part of our really DNA, and I can tell you that it's for the whole sector. The European Association, we are 60 members, but I think about 20 DC operators, and sustainability, it's at the core. So I think it's important to really state that. Then the second maybe interesting thing is that time to market is everything for AI. That's every day I'm hearing that. So I'm in Data4. I'm responsible to develop the data centers, the campuses, so to go to the TSO, to find engineering company and to do that. And what I'm asked, because we are final customers for AI, is time to market is everything. So maybe there is two things we need to take into consideration: is short term, if we want to triple the capacity by 2030, and then maybe medium to long term, where we can innovate, work on flexibility altogether. But still, I think it's important to think about maybe a temporary period, 3 to 5 years, and then maybe more long term. Based on, so if I look at short term, because that's where, and I think Mrs. Cody said, to be competitive with US and China, it's now. It's now in the 3 years to come. And the good news is that we have capacity, I think, in Europe. We have capacity. We have very, very strong and very good TSO. I'm working with many of them, and to be honest, they are very good companies. They understand more and more, so that's very good. But the way we are working together, it's not working. And we need to be very clear, to be honest. I think we are developing 1.5 gigawatts. It's around 20 projects without a drastic temporary change in regulation and in the collaboration mode between TSOs and data centers. We won't make it. And if I can just give two, I think I will say two main examples, and it was also tackled, and once again is to manage this short-term period. The first one is, so it's more, I will say, personal view, because as you stated, there is a grid package. We're currently working on that, and EUDCA is managing this, is a lot involved to find with all the stakeholders the good, I would say, the best practices that we can implement, but very simply, and it has been said, the first, and I think Mrs. Cozy talked about that, is the demand. How to understand this demand. The demand is massive. The demand will be big, but maybe not as big as it can be. So first is how we can help the TSOs to better understand the demand and to better manage the queue, really the queue, because it cannot be managed as first in, first serve. It doesn't make any sense. So I think we need to be more, I would say, in what is the right project, the right operator, the right partner, and at the right moment. So that's the key things in queue management. I think it should be linked also with all the very good initiatives that the European Commission has linked. For example, commitment to sustainability, labeling scheme. So if you are good in labeling scheme, then you can be
priority access to energy. So I think it will be also good to link this queue management to sustainability commitment. You can see that you will have strong partners, strong commitment. And I would say also maybe the last part, and maybe that's a tougher one with the TSO, but it's a regulated, and it's normal, it's a regulated activity, and we can see that I would like to change this, at minimum temporary speaking, a regulation like a transaction mode between us to a more partnership mode. So it will need for sure to remove some regulatory burdens, but to be able to define together solutions. I would say at minimum, because if we are continuing working on a transactional mode, for me it will not work.
Thank you very much. We heard a lot about the role of TSOs. Bernard, Gustin, the floor is yours to explain.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Of course, what you say is music to my ears. And I would love to do that. I would love to manage the queue. And you're right, we are in a situation where we have a growth that is unseen, and the regulation, the legislation is not adapting fast enough to that growth. And so every day, and when I was saying, I see it on a reputational, Google announced a major data center in Wallonia, we are all excited, and then I say, oh shit, I hope we have foreseen the connection and we can manage. Because if the butchery of the corner has decided to do a data center just before and they introduced before, I need to read them first. And so we absolutely need to, you're right, change the queue management approach, but we cannot do it the TSO so long the regulation and the legislation is not changed. We need to get away from the first come, first serve, which doesn't make sense with the current growth, to a first ready, first serve. I would love to be able to distinguish between serious and non-serious projects, but I'm not allowed. And we know also that the growth is magnificent, but the number of projects are 3 times the needed growth because there is an awful lot of speculation. And so also we should have serious people putting the money on the table so that we can start to work, while today you just take the ticket and it works. And so it's extremely frustrating on our side because we receive a lot of clients, and every day I receive people telling me, I'm starting a data center project, and I'm serious, and can it go faster? And I say, I'm sure you're serious, but I can't decide. And do you have your ticket in the queue? And I'll tell you when it will happen. And that's extremely frustrating because I've been chairman of the board of Elia for 7 years before being degraded to CEO. But basically before that, I've always worked in extremely competitive environment. We are stuck by the regulation. We are also sometimes good to hide behind the regulation. And it's clear that as a CEO with limited TSO background, we need to improve the customer relationship, which is sometimes a new concept for TSO. And I think in that respect, Elia, being present in 2 countries, having developed international activities, is trying to lead the pack. We're not perfect, but I think to some other older traditional companies, we try to bring a change. But I think really being able to change the regulation, moving away from the first come, first serve, also asking the projects to put their money where their mouth is, and to be, okay, you're a serious project, that means you have the means and you're ready to interact, is essential if we want to move forward. And then we have certainly to inculcate in the TSOs this partnership approach that makes that once the regulation is okay, we also explain our people that no, we are not in a queue mechanism. Also, and that's my last point, very important that the government put their priorities, because I believe with you, and I say I'm back from the US where you only hear about data centers, there are still some hesitations in some countries about the priority. Do I go for data centers? How many jobs does it create? And is it really the priority? And As a TSO, we have to follow the energy policy of a country, but there we need to have some clarity on those aspects as well. So we are really ready to embrace the change. There is no blame on anyone because it's an unseen growth, and we need to make sure that legislation and regulation, which is usually on a slower path, accelerates because of this unseen growth that we couldn't anticipate. But if we don't change that, I fully agree with your conclusion. We will have a meeting in 2 years from now to explain why we failed on the thing. And I say 2 years because when I hear some legislation path or regulation path, and when I talk to them, they are really working hard so that we are ready within 10 years. And that won't work.
Thank you very much. Very clear. We won't wait 2 years. In 2 weeks, our grids package will also look at the first come as first served as one of the parts of it. So I hope we can present here already progress. João Claro, last but not least for this first panel, what about innovation?
So I will speak from both sides of the aisle because I have both power and energy systems teams and computer science teams. But I think that some of the suggestions that we have prioritized have already been mentioned here. And on the power system side, co-location is exactly one of the things that we think should be a priority for the future. We believe that in particular regions with high renewable potential will be favorable siting options. Naturally combining this with flexibility ratios, minimum flexibility ratios, as has already been mentioned, incentives for this, incentives also for verifiable carbon matching. So I think that we believe that the combination of these instruments with the siting in regions with good renewable conditions and also grid storage would be an important direction for the future. In terms of enhancing integration. Operational flexibility in general is also a key aspect for the future. And one thing that was, I think, a bit mentioned in the previous interventions is the development and the availability of AI demand scenarios, the availability of these scenarios and their integration into network planning and security of supply assessment can also be a very strong enabler of the evolution of integration between AI and energy and the energy system for the future. On the data center side, we believe that there is a place for new demand management tools. So introducing sustainability and energy efficiency aspects, for instance, in service level agreements, green service level agreements, could be a useful instrument on the management of the data center demand side. We believe that there is a lot of low-hanging fruit on energy-aware computing, and software systems have not been developed with energy efficiency as a main criterion, and so we have been working in that area. We have been working, for instance, in developing software systems that allow us to have quite important gains in terms of energy efficiency while allowing for AI training to take place within the same criteria for runtime and for accuracy. So this is also an area that we believe is quite important for the future and where strong gains can be achieved.
Thank you very much. I think we had a first round now. I will give the floor to Roberto Viola.
Thank you, merci. Good afternoon to everyone. So my name is Roberto Viola. I'm the Director General for something called the DG Connect, which is the digital department of the European Commission. So AI, supercomputing, quantum, and the rules, are part of the things we do. So we are the one that consume the energy that you generate. I'd like to come back to the issue about tripling the capacity. I think Europe, Laura, will do even better. I will ask you the question. This week in the US, they published a paper about the miraculous and unexpected performance of Europe that now has the largest supercomputing grid of the world. And the article started to say no one would have expected this, but it happened, how it happened. Well, it happened because I think we invested, we worked together, and indeed now we have out of 10 the 5 most powerful supercomputers of the world, and out of the 10 greenest supercomputers, the first 3. So I think as Europeans we can be proud that we know how to do this stuff and also how to make it green and energy efficient. Now we are going to the next step. The next step is so big that the supercomputers are basically financed by the European Commission and the member states. The next step is AI supercomputers. We call them AI factories. We have already 17 already financed around Europe. But then we are going to the bigger step, very big step, which are the so-called AI gigafactories. We have made a call of expression of interest around Europe. Okay, we said it's an interesting project, though we promise only 30% of the capital that would be invested by us. Well, we got 76 proposals, a commitment for investment of 230 billion euros, and an offer for capacity well in excess of 1 million GPUs. You know, also we committed in the trade deal with the United States to buy 40 billion worth of GPUs from the United States. So these beasts will be each one a project of, around about 10 billion euros, consuming more than a big city. And we hope by next year we start to install them in at least 5, 6 member states, if not more. Many of you around this table are already partners in this project, investors, suppliers in discussions. When starting this project, of the largest equity funds of the world came in contact with us, we signed agreements, non-disclosure agreement with many of them. The first question was, is there availability of power? And the sticky question in some member states, not in all, and some we are really good at, it's the siting, the power, when it comes available, what is the expansion capability, and some of these equity funds don't even invest if there's no expansion capability of the site. And not surprisingly, for sure for you, some of the largest European cities a little bit suffer to offer capacity around this, so we have to move a little bit outside. So we are becoming scouting sites. And we are engaging with each member state, each investor, and as I said, many also companies which are grid operator or energy supplier in different form are part either of the investor club or are suppliers. And this is, of course, this will be the kind of Formula One data centers that we'll have in Europe. And then for the largest group of data centers, we are planning beginning of next year what is called the AI and Data Cloud Development Act, very much in cooperation with the grid package, to make sure that everything is the right place for Europe to be a place where data center will be installing them as easy as drinking water. And also looking at what we have done with some degree of success with the CHIP Act, where we said, look, if you have what we call a first-of-a-kind factory, which means you improve the way you manage, chip making, you will get a fast track in terms of permitting, in terms of support, in terms of local financing. And this, for instance, attracted a company like TSMC to build a chip factory in Germany, as you know. So the panorama in terms of what we are going to do is, on one side, work on this kind of top range super AI gigafactories, and for, let's say, the rest, the medium range, work together with DGN and ourselves to create the conditions to facilitate the famous target of, and I hope, Laura, to beat it. Tripling we are 2.3, you said. Now, I told you the gigafactory, we are probably already nearly 3, but let's say 3.5 or more. So, on more serious note, I really would like to ask you, now, we kind of declare very transparently what we are doing, but according to you, what we need to do? Is it the right things we are doing? There's something more. I heard many good suggestions, good ideas, which we are already practicing in the gigafactories. But please, the floor is absolutely yours, and I will start indeed with Laura. I mean, what it takes to beat your prevision.
Thank you so much, Roberto. So let me start by saying there were not previsions, we just took the project pipeline. So I'm very, very happy to hear that we will be doing better. It's fantastic. So from the energy sector perspective, we had, I think what's been done, it's very much in the right direction. We are seeing three critical things, and then maybe one precision on numbers. To go fast, I think here really time is of the essence. Transparency is the first step, and it's transparency on the two part of the equation. So first of all, very clear clarity on the amount of energy needed from data centers. Up to now, it has not been necessarily the case. In many cases, we see the same booking done by different entities. So transparency on the real need from the data centers is absolutely key. On the other side, it's not true that everywhere the grid is congested in Europe. And understanding quickly where the grid is not congested would be an incredible asset to attract more. So I think there is transparency on the two sides of the equation. On the longer term, I think everyone in the energy sector understands that we need investment in grids expansion, grids modernization, and grids digitalization. In the 5-10 years ahead, I think there has to be a discussion about who pays and how do we engage with the digital sector to understand how they can help actually expanding the grids and making sure that the batteries and everything that is built around flexibility is needed. So for us, this is a bit longer term, but it's coming and it has to come quickly. Third is the flexibility discussion of data centers. So when we discuss with data centers, we actually understand that it's not true that you need, so it's true, 99.9%, but you're not operating an hospital where you have lives there. There is model training, especially if you own several data centers, actually you can move it around. So there is some flexibility, and maybe behind closed doors, understanding how much is the real flexibility of data centers would be an enormous asset for the grid today. I would say an asset to the grid that is larger than the efficiency itself. So for grids today, flexibility has more value than efficiency. So transparency and understanding this flexibility part, even if it's small, would be enormously valuable. 2 points on efficiency and emissions. I think that for those of you who work in energy, if you hear the efficiency numbers that you hear coming from chips on even design in data centers, there would be a dream for the rest of the energy sector. When I hear that NVIDIA from one generation to the next cuts energy use by 50%, there is no other part of the energy system that is doing that. So I think that the innovation and what's happening on the efficiency side is simply incredible. And I finish on something that Roberto and both Bechtel said, is not data centers that are going to make or break EU climate targets. I think we need to be very honest about that. So they will attach to a grid that is decarbonizing and decarbonizing fast, and are not going to be the make or break. So I think we need to have a conversation that is very honest about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I'm a bit parochial as well on this last point, because on the contrary, I mean, our most sophisticated climate models run on our supercomputers. I mean, we have now the copy of the Earth, which is called Destination Earth, that could predict, I mean, extreme events in advance. So, I mean, Yeah, but I'm the digital one. So I would move on and involve Vincent in the discussion. I think you already hinted at a number of good ideas. So what it takes to make it much better now.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. At NG, we welcome definitively the initiative. Even better now, I took note of the 3.5 instead of multiplied by 3, so that is all good. Now, what I strongly believe is that when it comes to data center integration into the power system, we need to make sure that we do so, minimizing the impact on the grid, minimizing the impact on the prices, because then you will have impact on household and on industries, and minimizing the impact on sustainability. And here I join what you said, Laura. It's not because of data centers that Europe will miss will miss the sustainability targets. So what I believe we should do is, one, make sure that we're quick, and that echoes to my point on permitting before. And the only way to be quick is to promote the deployment of the generation capacity that we can scale up fast and quick. Renewable, flexibility, batteries in particular. Because speed to power, you said it, Marie, it's the name of the game for data centers. And the only way to bring additional clean power to data center, we're talking about next 5 to next 10 years, it's renewable and flexibility. Second, location. We need to discuss about location because it's not true that grids are congested everywhere. So we need to find a way to attract data centers where the grid is not congested. And the best way to do that is to push data centers to be co-located with generation facilities. And since the last point, and that was said before, it's not true that data centers need to run baseload systematically. So you can also participate to operate in a flexibility way in order to provide flexibility as well to the power system. I really want to reinsist that in my view, this is a great opportunity for Europe to be in a driving seat, but we need to act now, because there is also a lose-lose scenario, and the lose-lose scenario is basically we put barriers, we put constraints, we put extra regulation on development of data centers, so basically it doesn't come as big as anticipated. We build the grid, so the grid, the costs are committed, and at the end of the day, it's not used. So we have a fantastic infrastructure that would be not used. So for me, data centers, and especially when I see the evolution of the power demand growth the last 10 years, data centers is an opportunity to finally see the power demand picking up. So my message here is let's embrace it. We need speed, pragmatism, and ambition.
Thank you, Vincent. Just to what you said resonates with our now day-to-day experience in discussing with the investors about the gigafactories. I mean, but there's one thing in particular that makes the big difference in our day-to-day experience. So we have places, as you said, in Europe where basically there are no major problems, places which are quite problematic, which happen to be very interesting from the business point of view. Now, when you tell the government, the local government involved, and the consortium of investors, no good, that suddenly it's like Merlin the magician. If a grid company is involved, suddenly there's a site, there's power, and problems can be solved. If grid companies are outside the project, everything becomes complicated. So our day-to-day experience with the gigafactories is close to what you say, green, close to generation, flexibility, but also another key element is that energy companies are part of the development, not just suppliers, I mean.
if I may react to that, absolutely. So as a utility, and we see it happening right now in the US, so we team up with tech companies, we cooperate with them, we build joint ventures together in order to build data centers on our site as a utility. And my message here is we would love to do it in Europe as well. Okay, and basically this is also a way to minimize the grid developments, because we know all that take time. So if we can minimize the impact on infrastructure and utilize the existing infrastructure the best way we can, that is also improving speed to power, which is so important.
So what is the point of view, Marie, from the data center angle? I mean, the same problem. So can we make it this 3.5 times, 4, or whatever?
Thank you very much. I'm not used to. Maybe next time I will be more efficient. A simplification for me, the first point. Why? Because we are seeing that you are, and it's normal, you want to pursue many objectives in this gigafactory with different type of players. So first, you need to have players who can work together to find common agreements. You can have GPU manufacturers, you can have cloud providers, AI providers, co-location companies, etc. So I think we need to be careful because it seems to be a very complex project by all the objectives that you are looking for in this project. So for me, one key things will be maybe to a bit more simplify and go step by step to start with, and then to continue because it seems to be quite complex. Once again, it's because, and I will just give some technical feedback about what I heard today about load management, etc. The reality on site is that, so we are DC operators, so it means that we are developing, we are investing a lot of money on the grid, also on the land, we are investing to build the data centers, and after that we are putting the energy, and we are, I would say, selling the service, this energy to a final customer. This final customer, they can be the cloud operators, the new cloud, also LLM companies, etc. These guys are the ones who are giving us the technical requirements and the one we are having in our contract. So we cannot say, to be honest, we cannot say that the load is not geographically, you can change the load. Maybe Microsoft can do that, Amazon can do that, but if you take globally, it's not correct to say it. It's very specific, and for the moment, and we are not, and just for your information, we have no demand for, I will say, easier or more simple architecture. We need to be 5 nines. There is no change because it's not hospital, but we all want this working 24 hours. So in fact, all the services for the moment are requiring for the moment the same technical architecture. So in fact, it's not right to say that we have flexibility, except if you are a big player like Microsoft or these guys that is managing the whole value chain, that you can shift that. So I think we need to be careful on, and simplification can be, I think, one thing. The second one, and you touched it, it's about, I will say, sharing the risks and the commitment. Because when we are investing 70% of, and to be honest, you are talking about gigafactory, currently we are working on 1 gig, we call it a giga campus. It's thousands of billions of euro that we are investing, so we should be able to commit, but we should have also some commitment from the grid, from the local authority, to be sure that our investment will come in due time to make revenues. I mean, so I think also having a capacity in this project to better share the risk between all stakeholders, and also having shared commitments, for me, will be a key thing, because if not, we will be blocked.
Oh, thank you. I very much agree, and the big incentive of the gigafactories that we are capacity off takers, I mean, or investors for 35%, plus we come with the IB, and all what we can do to help also the financing of it. Still a very big project. One thing that I want to say, and maybe then Bertrand can comment on it, there's another emerging, because we are all discovering, I mean, the economy of the gigafactories, or the economy of super large data centers, it's a very intricate story. For instance, it is true, Laura, that NVIDIA is reducing the power of a single GPU, but then proposing to you to use more. So in reality, I mean, the famous pod of NVIDIA cost €1 billion each, I mean, is consuming even more than before. So, I mean, it's simply that they reduce it to offer, let's say, that you buy more. Now, there's another element where I think the grid operator of Europe have a competitive advantage, is that when you light up this beast, you lose GPUs. So this happens also to our supercomputers. Now, for how much they cost, I mean, every percentage of GPU that you can save from being burned, because, I mean, for instance, you have variability, you have many other factors, I mean, the GPU fail, it makes quite a difference in the business plan. So I think one of the things I always heard, for instance, from a company like TSMC, they come to Europe, they are happy, they have stable energy. I mean, they have quality that comes from our grid. And in a game where you're putting, I mean, big amount of capital in GPUs, I mean, that is something that matters. So I don't know what is your hands-on experience, Bernard, with all this. Will Europe make it 4 times more data centers?
I think if we foresee the tools, yes. But I won't repeat what I said before about regulation. I would like to stress on the dimension of transparency, which I think is very important. If we know exactly what we need to do, and this can be planned, I think it's very important that we can basically have a transparency on the real needs. I understand all the difficulties, but short-term flexibility will have to be part of the solution, because on the one hand, we have a lot of people willing to build, but a lot of people not willing their transmission fee to go higher. And so that's, I think, an important point that one of my key concern is that we start to build for nothing, and that or that we're building on the wrong place because just we are blind. Today, nothing to do with AI, though. We have a 31 billion euro capex plan, while electricity consumption is completely flat. So that at some point, if it doesn't pick up, one day it will be a huge investment for nothing. So transparency really in the demand and in the planning and in the timing is essential. Secondly, I think we might have, and I was listening to you, and it's totally outside of the current regulation mechanism, but have also, as you say, we can have shared commitments and so on, but then you need to have also a special treatment on the regulation. Because the advantage today is the socialist system. You all fall in the same pot and the same regulation. Of course, when we treat the data centers where you are very eager to have the capacity, but you're in the pot with all the other developments where the regulators say we need to secure the affordability of the energy transition so that Mr. and Mrs. X don't have more than X on their transport bill. And I think we could have a separate regulation for data centers which foresee a fair remuneration because, you know, at the end of the day, we have the operational capacity, but we have also the financing capacity. And of course, if it's to earn, like we do in Belgium, 7% and in Germany 9%, while in the US a return on equity below double digit doesn't exist on transmission, well, you know, there are some limitations. But I think if there is a reciprocal commitment, I understand you're fine to pay more for that because at the end of the day, it's a small part of your bill, but it's a big impact on your realization of a project. And that's also something we need to think about, is how do we create a specific regulation for data centers and AI, knowing that Europe should have a hand on that to avoid that we start the Wild West between the countries to try to attract the data centers. But don't forget that today, I would love to do, but I would have the regulation and the return that I need to give to everybody, while Maritz may be ready to pay a little bit more to have another type of service. I come from the airline sector, it's business class and economy. And we might have a business class service. And you know, in business class, how it works, you don't pay for the service you have. You pay because there is always a seat for you. And it takes 6 times the place of an economy class. And a data center is maybe ready for those type of things.
Well, my experience goes a little bit in the other sense. I mean, the economics, again, of the data center is an advanced one. So the one that uses last generation GPUs intensively, of course, that part dominates the CapEx by far. I mean, by far. I mean, you can even have a gold plating on your part, still you will not, I mean, influence the, yeah. But the point being, since investors expect the GPU market to be more competitive in the future, the energy cost is very much looked at in the business plan. Now, we have case of direct generation that they say, but we are forced to offer the regulated price. Not sure. I mean, and then suddenly in other cases, it's not clearly, it's if this direct generation to the data center, just for the data center, this is not even in something that comes available for the grid. So,
no, but then you add another dimension, of course, and that's the debate we have in the US. And by the way, we are present in the US, and there, two things. First, are you on the tariff, or are you doing a deal directly? By the way, I don't have a problem to enter the logic of a deal directly, but then you're not on the tariff. But that means also that we build for you and that you need to be ready to take the offtake. What we see very often in Europe is that there is not yet this readiness to say we have the closed system. And again, what we do in the US as well, we have discussion with our partner from day one. Where should we have a data center? We have our American partners. They are a little bit cold at the moment in the US, so they would like to invest in Europe. I had yesterday the question, biggest data center developer in the New York area and real estate company, and they told us, can you tell us in your territory where it would make sense? And that we're looking with them. Then, of course, they come in the queue and so on and so forth. But I think if we could have this approach from day one, that would help a lot, because we very often come at the end of the chain. I receive a lot of letters. I have a super data center project. Oh, great news. It's there. Oh, bad news. It would have been there. It would have been much better. And I think creating this partnership. But just coming back on, because I see you coming with the regulation, yes, we need to have energy price. Transparency is important. Also, how price and consumption will evolve in the future. Of course, we shouldn't build things if we believe the energy needs will decrease substantially in the future. We should preempt that. And that's, I think, very important that we know that. But also, and that's something we need to discuss with the Commission, we are a stock-listed company. We need to have a fair return at some point, and I don't think the returns we are completely crazy. But so that means if you have to have a more aggressive energy price, you know, I used to say a strategic decision is a decision you can't justify financially. But then that means somebody else has to say, this is a strategy, and we go for it. We have exactly the same on offshore. If you want to have the North Sea being an electricity power plant, there will need to be some CEFs and further, because it's a strategic decision. But we are also stock listed at some point.
I tried to say, we see two different types of things happening. I mean, the gigantic things for AI, where the only solution that makes sense is more or less direct generation surplus, and with the company that is doing that, investing in this. And this is more or less what we see in the gigafactory all over Europe now. I mean, then we have the other problem, which are all the rest of the data centers, which of course, I mean, need to be connected to the grid, need to have, and there, of course, we need to reflect together. I mean, the two components, I mean, here, it's historical that we are together here. I mean, how to create also an environment that, apart from the very big beast that will have their own kind of arrangement, how we can integrate the notion of data center within the grid and what kind of approach we should have. I mean, we see these two kind of classes.
Absolutely. And the first one, we are happy to help and won't be a problem. The second one, I think we need first to eliminate all the projects that do not make sense and are still on the grid, because that's the first issue, and that's the transparency. On the second one, I just say the regulation that you have today is the same as for everyone. If you only have the serious projects remaining, and it's maybe not only a return, it's what I say, putting the money first to have a connection fee at some point, that you are serious, that you put the money in there. It's things that we need to consider. And then, you know, the serious projects, they will be very happy to do so. And that means also you have engagement on your side that you respect, which we have to do legally, but that you have an SLA.
Thank you. I'm about to close this question about energy for AI to enter AI for energy. But before we close the chapter, energy for AI, is someone else that wants to say something? Please.
Thank you very much. Lex Koers, I am President EUDCA, representing the data center infrastructure. There is, about transparency, I would say, if the TSOs would also have a website telling us where is the capacity available, that would be very happy received by us. The other thing that we should not forget is we're overlooking where we build the data centers. We simply think, oh, there's capacity, let's build something there. But if you look carefully, it's around the highly connected sea cable connections, highly connected terrestrial cable connections, and the major fiber routes. We only have 3 years left before we lose or equal. I cannot even say win. But if we have to run fiber routes, major pipes, because if you build a gigafactory, you need to get rid of that data through a data pipe. So that requires massive pipes as well. So it's not that simple. We need to really think what is available. For instance, today we are working very closely with NSOE, the EUDCA. And Michael Winterson, our Secretary General, he is leading that project. We said on our side, we can go and work with all the national trade associations because they all report into the EUDCA. If NSOE can do the same to all the TSOs and make sure that on country level, we can, let's say, look at capacity, look at flexibility, what does it mean? We can do a lot together. So I'd like to share that.
Thank you. Any other interventions? Yes, please.
Yes, hi. I'm Jacqueline and I'm representing the European infrastructure cloud providers. It's called CISP. And actually we are a little bit higher in the stack. So we work either or we build our own data centers, but more so we take your data center services, and therefore we are partnering most of the times with electricity efficiency, the build, the cooling, everything that is also in our scope of knowledge and technology. But still, in the end, we are higher in the stack. So now I have 2 remarks just to mention where we are in this technology chain. And the second remark is that we know we want to have innovation. Our customers are equally dependent on us. So that's the third layer, like PaaS and SaaS. So now, actually, my only question here after these 2 remarks is how can we stay competitive? Because we are truly, fully dependent on electricity pricing. So despite all the challenges we have on innovation, technology, capacity, etc., it's coming down to a very simple point that we need to stay competitive, and we are dependent on how electricity is charged to us, and we charge it over to our PaaS and SaaS customers that stand for all innovation on AI? So that was my question.
How sensitive is your price to electricity? Because, I mean, when we see the super high capital intensive investments in AI, the GPU price really dominates, I mean, the equation.
So also I'm speaking for LeaseWeb, actually one of the members of CISP. We also obtain GPUs also from NVIDIA. We are happy to have them because not for everybody that could obtain them, taking care of the sanctions and everything. But in terms of day-to-day operations and in terms of keeping innovation on AI accelerating, electricity pricing are actually essential because in addition to that type of pricing, what you pay to your data center provider is more like the fixed cost. And that depends where the data center is established, is it new, is it a little bit older, the jurisdictions, etc. But even also in Asia Pacific, in the US, we have them all over the place, even though we are sovereign, like all the CISP members. From Dutch owners, the electricity pricing goes that far that you have to switch data centers, you have to relocate, you have to change your housing in case that is not efficient. So we do partner in innovation on electricity sustainability, but yeah, that is my sort of question again. The bottom line is it should stay competitive.
There was
Thanks a lot. Walburga Hemmetsberger, Solar Power Europe, the European Solar Association. So maybe first comment is we are super happy that there's more electrification demand. Electrification is stalling in Europe. We cannot build any more solar, not at the pace that we want. So we stand ready to provide the electricity for the energy that is needed. I wanted to touch on AI for energy because I do think it is worth highlighting some more comments. Maybe before I do that, I'm very happy to also hear that there's a huge call for grid hosting maps that we've been also calling for more transparency to see where there is connections. But now on AI for energy, just to say that, and I'm touching on what you said at the very beginning, Laura, that the energy sector could use much more AI still and is lagging behind when it comes to comparing it with other sectors. We miss digitalization in our sector. We need to, more digitalize our grids. Sitting next to you, Peter, DSOs, TSOs, we really need to have more digitalization in order to use AI. Energy sharing can be made possible, many other things. There's great projects happening already, but I think this is still a big bottleneck. And the second point I wanted to raise is security. It was touched upon, slightly in the beginning, in the introduction. We need to make sure that everything that is digital is also secure and that our supply chains are secure. That is of high importance.
Thank you.
Two big points. One is related to the topic flexibility, so in the topic energy for AI. We talked about a lot about the availability of energy, but I think one topic that we should consider is, in my understanding, reading online a lot on the profile. The profile of the new data center is very different from the past. It makes a lot of challenges in the variation of load. And the dynamics could be relevant for the power grid because of change of megawatt hour or megawatt per second very rapidly. That's what I've seen report talking, and that's a point when you talk about flexibility, it's a totally different story from what we call flexibility because it's the other way. The generation has to be flexible, which is not what we talk about right now in the renewable world, looking at flexibility on load side. So this is one comment. And the second is, I heard a lot about this availability of connection. I think in the work we are doing with the digital twin of the power grid, this is something that can be offered in the future. So we have a large activity in the Twin EU project that I take this as a comment I bring to the project to provide a solution to that question.
Thank you. Giving the floor to everyone, just to say that the next discussion is going to be AI for energy, so on digital twins, on grid control and all of this. So I was asking if there are questions on the topic we are about to close, which is energy for AI.
Philippe Piron from GE Nova, CEO of Electrification. I think that our experience on equipping all the data centers in the US showing that, as you said, there is really different patterns between what is an AI factory, a traditional cloud data center, there is no doubt. I think that in the battle between the US, China, and Europe, Europe has to develop something which is based on innovation. I will tell you that at the moment we are setting grid equipment for hyperscalers, data centers worth of 2 gigawatts. But most of the project we're working on is 3 to 5 gigawatt per data centers. At that size, it's totally different in terms of load profile, in terms of power quality, in terms of integration from power generation on-site up to the rack. What the US is not considering today is that how to re-optimize energy efficiency. All the projects I have, they don't care about the land, they don't care very much about the size, whatever it is, electricity, but there is as well water, there is land, and so on. Because what is important is time to market and to go very fast. I think if the EU wants to differentiate out of different things, they have to massively invest about new technology and not necessarily following exactly the standards in order to have a better, higher energy efficiency. It will come with cooling, for sure. It will come as well with power distribution. Because today, the best way to avoid losses and to reduce the footprint is going to go to higher voltage. Typically, today, NVIDIA has been started, and we are part of that as a partner to go to the 800 volt DC, but it's really a very first step. I think if we go to 1.5 kilovolt and even 2 kilovolt, 2000 volt on the rack, then you will get a much higher energy efficiency. On the top of that, going from AC to DC on the network will improve that. So there is really some innovation to be bring into the European data centers if we want to have a more compact, reduced data centers with a higher level. And that will be a key to differentiate. Because today, in terms of the battle of the investment between the US, China, and Europe, US has taken quite an advance. So the question, how to differentiate to still be in the race?
Well, on this, first of all, let me give you a spoiler what the Cloud and AI Development Act will be. First chapter will be, like we have done in the CHIP Act, all about new developments, power efficiency, how to be at the edge of, and I think in chips, this is the part where Europe is not bad at all. I mean, with SML, IMEC, and company. I mean, so for instance, you mentioned DC power data center. We are not in a good place. I mean, today in the world, the best is China on DC power data center, not even the US. You are absolutely right. The US took an approach because many of these are unanswered projects. I mean, the real projects are not that many also in the US. Now, for instance, one in, and I will say not the company, but in Phoenix, when they light up the old beast, I mean, they lost more than 10% of the GPUs. Well, you could say, who cares? But I mean, when the AI market will be a little bit more price attentive, I mean, losing 10% of the GPU is a big thing. So indeed, you are absolutely right. There are certain projects that don't care about power consumption, reliability, whatever. The important thing is an announcement. But when things will become a bit more stable, then all of these factors will come on the table. I'm sure about it. And this is the very moment where Europe has to be prepared and line up a number of solutions that might be very competitive in the market.
Arno Büchs, I represent the gas infrastructure, which hasn't been mentioned to this date. And I understand that today time to market is everything, so grid connection to electricity is the name of the game, but we will indeed come into times where price of electricity and just availability of enough electricity will be very important. And certainly when we enter into the gigawatt domains, we need to sort of think one step further and ask ourselves the question, what is the underlying infrastructure to provide the primary energy carrier to get that electricity on the road? And I'm quoting Vincent to say, sure, we need, I mean, the more we get renewables into these new applications, the better, but there's also the need for flexibility to secure this up. The second remark is, I was somewhat puzzled by the debate on the regulation, the queue management, how to differentiate serious projects from others. On the gas side, regulation gives much more leeway in this context. That's because the commercial models in the past were quite different between the gas grid and the electricity grid. There was much more commitment being asked on the gas side for new connections, even for grid expansions, that there was the case in the electricity that was always much more, as you said, socialized from the beginning. We don't have regulators around the table, I think, but I would encourage them sort of, because typically regulators are as siloed as the industry, to really look on the other side. There are tools available, I think, that could address this question rather well, and certainly in the short term be a help. I'm not questioning the need for a fundamental review of, for instance, the queuing system, etc. But there are some tools that could be of interest.
So maybe a short intervention from my side. Johan Monstam, representing the Europeans' largest distribution system operators. And I think just a comment, I think the data center side here mentioned TSOs, but most of the connections are on the DSO side, and there is actually quite a lot of things happening to enabling connections of data centers. I just want to emphasize regulation is really important, that we continue to do the investments that are needed, but also to incentivize flexibility so we can use the system in a more efficient way. We mentioned permitting processes, but I think also another thing is really the partnership that you mentioned. We have seen that when we have done large connection projects, that if we put things openly and transparently, we can synchronize the time plans, and not always all the capacity that is requested as the end game is needed in the beginning. That means that if we have this transparency, we can actually connect quicker and then build out the capacity as the data centers are increasing their capacity. Then I would just like to emphasize also on the top of transparency that we have grid development plans. So we, in many countries, also publish where we have idle capacity. And I think that is something that we can continue to do, and also to enable go-to zones where we have this idle capacity. And last but not least, it's also about making sure that the energy transition is affordable. And with that said, I think Commissioner Jørgensen mentioned that we also take care of the excess heat. So it's really a system perspective. It's not only electricity, it's really the total system perspective. Thank you.
On this, just anecdotically, one of the largest supercomputers we have in Europe, which is Lumi in Finland, it's the old village. I mean, it generates, but it's just anecdotal. Yeah. Okay, so we are really, I mean, we have a very sloppy time management, but a super discussion. So at least on this side, we are happy. I hope you are happy too. Now we are really pressed to go to the next topic, which is equally important and probably equally, I mean, something to discuss for the whole night, which is how to use at best AI for energy. And on this, again, we will listen to you. And AI for energy, there are many dimensions. We will start with the more, let's say, the algorithmic dimension, what is the overall impact of AI. Then there's a data dimension that we'll explore. But on the overall impact of AI, it is a game changer. And it is, of course, important that also regulators accept, I mean, more and more the use of AI in practices. It's also important that, I mean, there are not just the hype of AI, but real concrete cases where it makes the difference. Of course, I'm an AI enthusiast, so I can see, and we are already, concrete projects where it makes the difference. You all spoke about the variable load of networks, optimization, local generation, distribution. There are countless examples where the complexity of optimization, points towards, AI modeling. The same for digital twins that were mentioned in terms of, controlling the network, predictive maintenance, simulation of catastrophic event or less catastrophic but impactful event. There's a dimension of cybersecurity where also AI plays a role. There's a dimension of security of supply chains in means of secure vendors that also will be a big topic for us in the months to come. So this is a bit the game plan or the space in which we play the AI for an energy game. I would give the floor to Johan Berchan, sorry.
Sure, thanks, and I'm really happy to discuss about that because, as you said, this is equally important. Just to reset the scenes, at Schneider, we are a global energy technology company, so we serve more than 100 countries, but we have a strong presence in Europe. 45,000 employees to serve our European customers and invent the future of energy technology. And we leverage AI to drive sustainability and efficiency. I want to walk you through in the context of critical infrastructure and energy. Cybersecurity is key. We have to acknowledge that the OT system of critical infrastructure became a more frequent target to cyber attacks. And at Schneider, we have a long and trusted history working with critical infrastructure industries, where we transform their OT environment with more secure AI offers to minimize the disruption, minimize the risk, while enriching the value. And what I would like to walk you through is our AI journey. So we started 4 years ago to really invest massively on AI at Schneider to bring sustainability and electrification all together. And we, from day one, define a responsible AI strategy to develop and deploy AI systems. 3 key dimensions that we implemented. First one, transparency and explainability. Why is that? Because we want our AI system to be transparent and explainable. First, to comply with regulations, you mentioned that, on the geography we are operating in, but as well to foster adoption of our AI systems. Because the AI system we are developing, they are targeting subject matter experts in their respective domains. And to make sure they adopt AI in their day-to-day life, in their day-to-day activity, we want to make sure that they can check and look why the AI system made such or such local or global decision. And this is key, because we want the AI to augment their ability. And given the critical infrastructure set, we consider that really we want to make sure that we have human in the loop. So human oversight. We augment the expert with AI, but the final decision is made by the experts themselves. So that's key. Point number 1. Point number 2, robustness. We want to make sure that our systems are resilient to any type of event. Cyber attacks, human error, mistakes, you name it. We want our AI system to be resilient. This is key. And for that, we developed, and sorry about the technicality of that, but we invested a lot on our machine learning operation capability, so aka MLOps for the one who like it. And happy to have a further conversation on that. And last point, sustainability. Sustainability is core DNA of Schneider. We've been recognized as the most sustainable company in the world by Time Magazine, by Corporate Knights, and we implemented sustainable AI with frugal AI, so we published different studies. Mrs. Cozy, you mentioned a 3-time factor between how much AI is consuming versus how much AI can save in energy sector. In our microgrid solution, we have a factor of 60. In HVAC optimization for building, a factor of 200. So we decided to invest in AI to tackle the most energy-intensive processes, and this is working at scale. And finally, on responsible AI, what we put together at the company level, in addition to all the implementation measures that I mentioned, is a responsible AI committee at the C-level who is in charge to look at the ethical and risks that are induced by the AI system that we want to deliver and to deploy. So again, transparency, explainability, responsibility, robustness, and sustainable AI. And this is how we think that we're going to fuel innovation with AI.
Thank you, Johan. We will select you as testimonial for our campaign on AI made in Europe. Laura, what is your take? AI for energy.
I have covered that in my presentation, and I'll leave the floor to others. Thank you very much.
Yes, maybe let's look at how we got to operating our energy automation layer. Today we take 4.8 million optimization decisions for our customers. We take them to make sure that our customers always have the cheapest and cleanest energy, and by that also we optimize how renewables are used. So how can we make use cases of that more scalable, let's say? Because obviously to get to 4.8 million decisions, you need a lot of forecasting. We have lots of ML ops models. You need to do many things that involve AI to get there. But once you have that model, you could scale it basically to make even better use of it, to optimize renewable usage even more and to connect even more customer assets. So it all starts with the installation of the renewable assets, which is the first thing also that 1,5 looked at, and how we at all came within 3 years to that size of scaling of connected assets. Because if you install the asset and if you work with the manufacturer, you can work on something that somehow in Europe we don't look too much into often, connecting the assets. But the manufacturers do that anyway, right? And I think there is also part of the fear that we have with using AI in energy is AI will steer the assets. But if we in Europe don't look into how do we actually want to steer the assets, the manufacturers do connect them anyway, and they can steer them from somewhere else anyway. So I think there's the first action point is make sure that connection to decentralized energy assets is in a way democratized, right? So that everybody can have access, but then we start monitoring what happens to those assets and how are they steered, instead of trying to not regulate that everybody has access to steering those assets. So once assets then are connected, and there is access basically also for flexibility providers to those assets, the pool of systems you can connect gets a lot bigger, and you can make a better use of optimization models to steer those assets, right? Then if you have the connected assets, there is different dimensions you can steer them for. And there's obviously the market side and there's the grid side of things. If we look into the market side, I think we've made major progress in Europe over the last 20 years that I'm working in that field when it comes to having standardized markets, having access to data available on what is the energy prices, how much of that is from renewables, from central generation, and all those different things that advanced a lot. So I can steer my assets today pretty much on what the market needs and what the cost side of things is. However, then we still struggle with making that billable to customers, because the processes in the energy markets that come with smart meter data availability, how those data access through market communications and things works, are pretty fragmented still across Europe, but also specifically then in Germany. But that's a major challenge in that market, is not first of all getting the information and doing something useful, but then being able to bill the usefulness of the assets back to the customers to also give them the incentive. So a lot of our customers get frustrated because we onboard them in dynamic tariffs, we start steering their assets, they see they do something useful with the assets and provide the flexibility, but then I can't bill them because I'm missing the data. And then once we've solved that problem and we can also make customers or involve customers in having the benefits really of how we steer their assets, there's a grid side of things. Because if I'm running, like today anyway, an optimization model with 60,000 connected households, I might as well not only use them on the best terms for the market, but I might also use them on the best terms for the grid. But to do that, I would need to know what is the best term for the grid. And today we are missing the data on that side, even to feed any of the AI models on what the grid, not only in general, but also location specifically, really needs from the decentral energy assets. Because we could make a lot more use of those assets if we know there are congestions in certain regions and steer against that. So I think that's then the final step of solving the input data for the AI world is really then to look into the grid side. So to summarize, I would say the struggle is more on the data availability side and on regulating access to that than on regulating AI itself.
Thank you, because this drives us into the data, which was the last part of our conversation. We are already a bit late, so if you have stamina, I will hand over the floor to Mechtil, that will steer the last stretch of the conversation on data very quickly to get your opinion, because it's a point of paramount importance. By the way, today we published our data union strategy, and it's all about data for AI, data labeling, quality of data, I mean, curation of data, and working together in cooperative fashion about data. So we have dedicated this strategy only to this point, I mean.
Excellent, very good. So in order, looking at the time, I will just open the floor on the quality data for energy aspect, if you can be short, but of course we open the floor for those who want to speak. Alexandros.
Yes, I'm Alexandros Panterakis. I represent Digital Europe here. Also, I'm the Deputy CEO for PPC, which we are sort of a leading energy company in Southeast Europe. I think one of the important points that I think was mentioned before, we are probably the underdeveloped parties in terms of using digitalization and AI. I think it will not come as a surprise to you, but one of the most important reasons for that is we don't get remunerated for this. So on the grid side of the business, when you do digital stuff, it doesn't count towards the RAB. So I think one very easy and targeted decision that can be taken is allow for digital assets and all of these nice things that we're talking about to be included and being remunerated for. Otherwise, there's not much of an interest for us to do more in that space, because at the end of the day, again, we have to make money from somewhere, and our investments need return on capital. So I think that's one very concrete, very simple binary. Obviously, we have enough CapEx to deploy. We'd like to do more, but as I said, we don't have the incentive for it. I think the second part, I'd like to introduce, again, the word of standardization. So I think one way of sort of bringing some clarity into sort of this fragmentation and dissimilarities across the member states, I think is let's start creating a bit of a baseline. So I think there's just a minimum set of things that we will all need to sort of agree to. So I don't know, let's just decide what it is. You want at least AI in this space, or you want this model to do forecasting or whatever, whether it's in the cyberspace or in the operational side. I think it's a very easy and low-hanging fruit, where from a directive perspective, if we all can achieve this by 26, 27, 28, and 30, you can definitely guarantee that we will scale towards that direction, whether it's directional input you want, so we all want to go in one direction, or whether you want to address sort of dissimilarities because you want to converge things. So again, 2 points. One is TOTEX instead of CAPEX, and basically some form of standardization which will allow us all to understand what it is that we need to do. And if you want to take that a bit further, you can compensate, remunerate in any form or manner for those who achieve those minimum baselines, and eventually the ones who don't will basically be the outliers. Thank you.
Thank you. I will pass the floor to you. Patrick.
Patrick Crowley from the European Heat Pump Association. I would just like to, I won't be seen as a supporter of the party, but I still would have to make a comment on that when going to digitalization, Oh, it's gone. Okay, when going to digitalization, to flexibility, I think the heat pump systems for residential heat, for commercial heat, for whatever, the tool is there. And we're in very big discussion with a colleague, Spitty, he just left from Acer, that we will have obligations that the units need to be flexible, they need to be able to respond to codes, etc., etc. Yet, almost 90% of the heating systems sold in Europe are completely not flexible, are completely not even electric. And that's basically the core of it. If we don't manage to roll them out, we're just talking about something that potentially could contribute, but there's no regulation in place for the time being in Europe anymore to make people actually buy them. And I do appreciate, Barbara, with your efforts you are doing, you are trying to address that. But still, the fact of the matter is that 85 to 90% of the heating systems sold in Europe today are not electric, are not flexible, are not even binary.
Sure. We are looking into that with our heating and cooling, Barbara, but then I have Hans.
Yeah, maybe to respond directly to that, because I think we know from the technical side, we know the answer to that. Put a battery next to it. Once you have a battery next to it and you do a proper forecast of what your heat pump consumption will be, you can solve that on site and it does never get to become an issue to the grid.
Most of this development will be played out in the backyards of our grids, and the DSO community is consisting of very, very small companies and all the way up to huge companies. And we will have to be able to offer the market basically the same opportunities, both to establish new companies in every region around Europe. So knowing that we have almost all the customers connected to the DSO companies, and the new power generation that is decentralized, as you mentioned, coming in to the local grids. And we know that the local grids also have to start working with resilience and see to that we can have island operation, for example, of grids. It's incredibly important to us to work with AI and digitalization. That's why I'm very happy that you took this initiative to this meeting here. So with AI, we will have the possibility to shorten lead times, to connect, to create the maps on where we could connect. We can release new capacities on the grids. I think we can release 20-25% capacities without investing in copper and things like that, if we get AI going on the local and regional grids. In order to do that, and now I'm basically coming back to a bit of what you all said, I think I brought three important things to this meeting, and one is data quality. We need to find secure, interoperable, quality data so that we can create the platforms and as I said, release a lot more capacity, show where you can have new facilities coming into the net and shortening lead times to establish things. Another thing, and that hasn't been mentioned here, I think that we would benefit from our own AI foundational models for energy in Europe. Currently, we are depending on models from the US or China or wherever. I think we need to have reliable models for doing that. Coming back a bit to the secure data, the Commission normally turns to the TSOs when it comes to building data platforms. And I think it would be, especially given that the DSOs are very important for this development, that you start involving the DSOs in building these data bases. Lastly, what you mentioned, regulatory issues.
I think that regulation here is incredibly important. Without having a stable, and we come back to this every meeting when we meet you, without having a stable regulation that is also aiming at the same targets that you are aiming at, we will never be able to create this development here. So without digitalization, we have no energy transition, and without DSOs, we will have no digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, DSOs, we heard that before, are crucially important, but also the cooperation between DSOs and TSOs is crucial. And then is the place for Uros from ENTSO-E.
Thank you. I think you're all recognizing ENTSO-E being involved in many activities, so we have a very strong collaboration with the EU-DSA entity on digitalization, and digitalization is really all around our activities. And of course, we are struggling very hard to improve the trust, the legal certainty, and also to remove the challenges of fragmentation of data exchange and the rules we have there. So we have some ideas how we could improve the multi-stakeholder, I would say, approach to this, maybe going in the direction of some new governing councils, which could improve the situation here. But today I was sent here by ENTSO-E because I spent the summer in Edmonton, Canada, for one specific AI for energy. Now I'm moving to these fields now. Element which somehow is Edmonton is a center point of the world in terms of one of the machine learning techniques called reinforcement learning. And I think we should really understand that if Europe wants to be the best in AI, we have to be the best in implementation of AI techniques. And here the energy system is really one of the most complex machines we have in the world, which is the perfect playground for these implementations. And nobody mentioned this word today, but we have to somehow start embracing a notion and the concept called superintelligence, if you want to be really the best, And superintelligence is not something we should be prohibiting. We should really embrace these elements. Why? Because this is the intelligence which we will look for. This is the core optimization. This is what is supporting our core business processes of the future. And it's not even LLM based, It's something which does not require these huge amounts of data, which really works on algorithms which are on the top, like we already expressed today. But if you want to go that way, we really need to do it safely, securely, in a regulated way. So to promote such a dangerous concept, it needs to be promoted through and by regulation. We need a lot of regulation there. And it should bring the coherent regulation principles. We need a lot of legal certainty when we develop these superintelligence machines. And of course, we should have enforceable sector-tailored provisions for that. We need to know how to tackle these elements when we develop in this way. So I really believe that Europe should be the best in the implementation of AI solutions, and superintelligence should be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, highlighting the superintelligence and also the complexity of the electricity or energy systems. 1, 2, 3, and I think then we
I will be very short. Gert Blok Sirek, we're European Federation of Local Energy Companies, connecting about 100 million customers in electricity, gas, district heating. And there is potential in every part of the value chain. So companies it can be in generation, can be in grids, can be in services, can be in trading. There's a lot of potential. Data quality, data interoperability needs have been mentioned already, but I would like to make 3 other points. Some ask for extra regulation. We would hope there is no additional laws, regulation, or governance structures. And how ambitious it may be, we hope that a strategic vision on AI and energy could be combined with the simplification initiatives that are currently being developed. The second point, be it on transmission or distribution level, grid capacity is a scarce good. So the minimum should be avoid speculation on it. And the second, for both sides, have a flexible approach, both from the demand as from the offer of this capacity. A last point, maybe a very concrete proposal. If there could be European support to facilitate the creation of sort of ecosystems or innovation centers where AI developers and the energy sector in the different parts of the value chain could be brought together, this maybe could bring things really in practice forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Fully agree also on your last point, also on the others, but the last point concretely. I think they're here, and then Yuan, you want to come back?
Greg Arrowsmith from EUREC. I'm struck by what Barbara said. You said that it was the struggle that we faced was really in regulating access to data. And that's something certainly that my members who are researchers in renewables feel daily. They would love to get their hands on more data from operating renewable energy plants, as would any new entrant who's in the business of providing energy management system software, who's interested in predictive maintenance, in eking the last few % of performance out of an operating asset. And so what we need to help these people is to build up a corpus of data from multiple plants, which is not only in the hands of maybe an entity which the asset owner has a relationship, but could be in a database and shared more widely under certain carefully specified conditions and with a certain carefully specified group, perhaps in something like a common European energy data space, and then used to develop these tools. To do that, we're going to need to give the data owners an incentive. Maybe that, I mean, it could be a financial incentive. It could be something which is built into non-price criteria that in the auctions for public support that member states offer to renewable energy systems. And so we hope that perhaps in a revision of the Net Zero Industry Act, this could be a new interpretation of the innovation criteria that we see in that. Or indeed, it could be an idea that would be explored, this access to data from operating plants in the next renewable energy framework coming up about a year from now.
Thank you very much. Point taken. Last but not least, Yuan.
Thank you. I wanted maybe to finish by a message of enthusiasm and optimism. Good news I want to share with you is that to innovate in the energy sector with AI, it's already possible. We're already doing it. So I would be happy to continue the conversation on your respective fields, but we are seriously already doing it all over the place. And good news as well is that in our AI solutions, the portfolio we have developed, 60% is based on classical, traditional AI/ML model. So it doesn't need to be that sophisticated. Where we see generative AI or new or future technology that we have no clue what it is about yet, could be a game changer, is probably on the multimodality, combining all types of data, text data, time series, audio, videos, schematics, you name it. This is where we really feel like, as the ecosystem we represent, and I'm pretty sure we all combine, we can bring that together. This is our opportunity. Create the future of energy technology, and I think we are all represented here. So it's up to us to decide whether we wanted to do it or not.
Short comments? Yeah, maybe a short comment to close down on the opportunities. So all of us here, we have a role because we are looking forward to huge investments. If it were for the NVIDIA GPUs, we put that in the compute power we can deliver. For the AI innovations, we all have big and huge investments to make. So in our CISP reply to the Apply AI strategy, we need also to collaborate on how to make these investments possible. And that's also from the financial side a challenge. So that was one of my list. Thank you.
Many thanks. So we come to a close. We have donated our conclusion time to the discussion. I mean, so we will just say thank you. It has been extremely useful for us. We have taken plenty of notes, and of course we'll come back with some concrete follow-up, because this is not just a discussion because we like to have a discussion which is passionate. It's a discussion that helps us, I mean, to make some sensible work in the area.
Indeed, we are coming up with a roadmap on AI and energy, but more importantly, there's a drink outside, so you can continue the discussion. Thank you all.